OK, so what else is out? What else is new? What else is interesting?
Reel Britannia, which is a documentary series on BritBox, documentary series of a modern history of British cinema. Starts by asking what that actually means. You're going to hear a clip from episode 1 in which you'll hear the voices of Stephen Frears, Steve Woolley, Sally Potter, Terence Davis, Mike Leigh, Ken Loach, David Putnam, and at the beginning, Edgar Wright.
What is a British film?
Don't ask me. I haven't a clue.
How do you define Britishness?
What I don't think it is looking to another country for the impetus.
I think most filmmakers would say they're not defined by their country, but by their intention to communicate.
There is Hollywood and there is world cinema. And world cinema is what we are part of.
I think a British film is one which springs from the culture and the experiences and stories and comedy and way of life of the people who live on this land, in these islands.
It can be landscape, can be language. It's mostly about character. I think there is quite distinct character.
It's about Britain. It's made by British people. It's generated with American money. I haven't a clue. I can't do better than that.
Because, as we all know, it's actually very hard to define what a British film is. So the series is made by John Spira and Hank Starrs in association with the BFI, the British Film Institute. And it does include interviews, but the first 2 episodes, which are the 2 that I've seen, it's largely a narrated essay narrated by Nick Helm, illustrated with clips from the movies that it's talking about. So the first episode concentrates on the 60s and the way in which social change, social realism had reinvigorated theatre and cinema, and what happened in British cinema through 50s and 60s, and how it kind of the new wave of British cinema came about. And then the second episode is the 1970s. So have plenty of fun with Ken Russell, who gets pushed into the 70s at the end of the 60s. He said, well, Ken Russell, but we'll do him in the 70s, and then Nick Rogue. And so the interesting thing about it is this. Obviously, I made Secrets of Cinema for the BBC, which is it's like a narrated essay on a series of different themes about cinema. And this is a narrated essay, but they're very different, very, very different beasts. But the thing I'll tell you from doing Secrets of Cinema is that what it really comes down to is your clips sourcing and the editing of those clips. You construct the program in the edit. And it's a really, really very difficult job. And if it's done well, what you do is you find a way to tell an old story in a new way. And I think that this does that. It has an argument. I always quote that thing that in David Cronenberg's Videodrome. She says, Videodrome has a philosophy, and that's what makes it dangerous. And with any of these things, what you need is for it to lead you through a landscape that uses clips to illustrate that landscape well, uses language that makes things accessible and understandable, introduces you to films that you know, but also adjacently to films that you don't know, and plots a course through it. It's a very, very complicated thing to do, and I think this does it in a way that's very watchable, sprightly use of animation, very deft use of clips. I mean, what's intriguing is not only does it find a path through the decades that I've seen so far, 60s and 70s, but also very specifically make sure that certain films which have been lost, or certain films which have been overlooked, certain films which have had people have turned their noses up at, have been rediscovered and brought back into the fold. So it's very, very watchable. I read a review that said, a treat for cineasts. I don't agree. I don't think you'd have to be a cineast. I think you just have to be interested in film. I think it's very welcoming and very easy to watch, and absolutely terrific in terms of the way in which the clips are used to construct an argument, and it has an argument, and that's its strength.
Jeff Goldblum, in that interview that we played, the way he talks about Jurassic World Dominion, he makes it sound like a British film.
I know, absolutely. And the whole argument about of course, Ken Russell's autobiography, one of his autobiographies, was called A British Picture because Ken Russell's mother used to use the phrase, is it a British picture? By which she meant does it take place in a kitchen in black and white with somebody having a miserable time? And Russell was like, there's a thing in the second episode in which he said Russell clearly hadn't got the memo